Right, let's look at a few definitions that we use in mathematics. Um, the first one is factors. This is something factors and multiples and prime numbers and prime factors are things that we learn in primary school already. Um, but we do use them a lot in high school maths and still even up to matric. So it is worth your while to just know what these things are and be sure to know the definitions and know how to get these things. Right, now factors are all of the numbers that divide into a number. If you don't know this, please make some notes for yourself. So, for instance, the things that divide into 16 will be 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. These I call the factors of 16. Multiples are the things that this number divides into. Factors are smaller than the number and multiples are bigger than the number. So 16 goes into 16, 32, 48, if I count in 16s, 64, 80, and these are called the multiples of 16. Right, now prime numbers is something that has exactly two factors. Now you know what factors are. Those are things that divide into a number. Now if I have exactly two factors, then I have a prime number. So if I look at, for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, I'm just going to go to there. If I look at 1 has exactly one factor, one thing that can divide into it, and that's 1. So that's not prime, because a prime number must have exactly two factors, and those factors are always 1 and itself. 2 has two factors, 1 and itself. 1 goes into 2 and 2 goes into 2. 3 has exactly two factors, 1 and 3. And 4 has three factors, 1, 2, and 4 goes into 4. So there's not two exact factors, and then 4 is not a prime number. If you think of 5, the only numbers that can divide into 5 are 1 and 5, so that is two factors exactly. The numbers that can divide into 6 are 1, 2, 3, and 6, so it has more than two factors. The numbers that can divide into 7 is 1 and 7 itself. The numbers that can divide into 8 is 1, 2, 4, and 8, so that's definitely not prime. And you know that 3 can also divide into 9, so apart from 1 and 9, it also has a factor 3. So 9 is not prime. 10 is also not prime because it has factors 1, 2, 5, and 10. 11 is prime because the only factors that it has is 1 and 11. 12 is definitely not prime because there's many things that can divide into 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 12. 13 is prime. It only has the factors 1 and 13, and then 14 is not prime. It is worth taking note, the only even number that will be prime is 2, because all of the even numbers that follow has 1 itself as factors and also 2. Even numbers can always divide by 2. So anything bigger than 2 will also have the factor 2 that it can divide into it. So the only even prime number is 2. And then for the uneven numbers, I just have to go check, is there something else that can also divide into that number, like with 9. 3 can also divide into, with 15. 3 and 5 can also divide into. 21, 3 and 7 can also, so these numbers are not prime. And it is worth taking note that 1 is not a prime number. This is always something that we're not sure of 100%. But prime numbers must have exactly two factors, and since one only has the one factor, one in itself is the same thing, this is not a prime number. Right, now prime factors are quite important. It's a very important bit of mathematics. You're going to see we're going to use prime factors a lot. So please take note of this. See how you do it. Know what prime factors are, know how to get them, and practice getting them so that you know this. Right, you will remember this ladder maybe from primary school. You did this a lot in primary school, and there's a reason why you did this a lot, is because we use this a lot in high school, right? So what happens if I'm searching for factors? That means things that can divide into 200 that are prime. So prime factors is things that can divide that are also prime numbers. And the method I follow is I start dividing by the smallest prime number, and if I can't divide by 2 anymore, I go to 3 and then to 5 and then to 7 and then to 11 and so forth. Right, so I'm going to divide by 2, and 200 divided by 2 is 100, and then 100 I can still divide by 2, that gives me 50. And 50 I can still divide by 2, that gives me 25. And now I can't divide by 2 anymore. Now I must see if I can divide 25 by 3. Now I know 3 doesn't go into 25 because it goes into 24 and 27. And then I'm not going to divide by 3, I'm going to move to the next prime number, which is 5. And then 25 divided by 5 is 5, and 5 divided by 5 is 1. And when you get to 1, you will always get to 1. You are finished. Please don't go divide by 1, because 1 is not a prime number. Right. So this is how I get prime factors. Then I can say that 200 is equal to 2 to the power of 3 times 5 squared. And you will hear me refer to this a lot. This is 200's prime factor form, and we will use prime factor form quite a lot. If you have the Casio, this calculator, the Casio FX82 Plus model, there's a pink one and a blue one and a grey one. I know most of the kids in school has the grey one. If you have this calculator, quickly just take a look at this. You can get any number into prime factor form on this calculator. I don't know of any other calculator on the market that can do this. I know the Sharp that is the second most used calculator does not do this. It does not have a function that can do this. I'm gonna try and hold the calculator so that you can see the screen. So what I want to do is I type in 200, and first I just press the equal button so that it shows 200 there in the answer for me, and then I press shift, and you will see here above this button there says in yellow fact. If you have that fact function on your calculator, I press shift fact, and it shows me that 200 is 2 to the power of 3 times 5 squared, which is there. Right, so this calculator can write the numbers into prime factor form. The light is funny now, you can't see this properly, but I use this. I'm trying to keep it so that you can see that, but there is fact, you can't really read it, but there is a fact button. It's like if I go down here, the third button, the second one in the row has fact on top, so I use shift that button to get to fact, and that divides a number into its prime factors. Right, so I can use any number, say for instance 12. Just remember to press equal first, and then I do shift fact, and it gives me 12 is 2 squared times 3, if you can see the answer there. If I press 12 shift fact, you will see it does nothing. If I press 12 and I can press shift fact, it doesn't do anything. I must press equal first so that I have the 12 there, and then I press shift fact. Alright, so you can do this with your calculator if you have this model. Unfortunately, it's the only model I know that can do this. The grey one, the blue one, and the pink one can do this. Please don't go and buy one of this just for that function if you have another calculator. The sharp calculators are also very good calculators to use on high school level, but the fact that this one can do the prime factor form is quite amazing, because you will see when we get to exponents and to things like that, that we use prime factors quite a lot, and we use the prime factor form quite a lot. So know what it is, know how to get it either by hand or with your calculator, because you will see we use prime factor form a lot. Right, then something else we use a lot in mathematics. When I talk about an expression, an equation, and an inequality, make sure you know the difference. Inequality. Right, an expression is a mathematical sentence without an equal sign. Right, and the reason why I want you to know the difference between these things, or that there's different methods of that you follow of calculations or solving. Usually with expressions you will simplify, and with equations you will solve, but there's different approaches and methods that you follow depending on whether you have an expression or an equation. So it is worth just knowing what the difference is. As you see, these are all expressions. These are mathematical sentences like 2x plus 2, or x squared minus y squared, or 6x squared plus 5x plus 6. These are all mathematical sentences, but they don't have an equal sign. The moment I put an equal sign in, say for instance I have 2x plus 2 is equal to 0, or x squared is equal to y squared, or say for instance 6x squared plus 5x is equal to minus 6, then I have an equation. And the reason why this is an equation is because there's an equal sign. Right, and there's different methods of approaching an equation and an expression, especially when I have roots in the expression or equation, when I have these roots, and when I have fractions. When I have a fraction in an equation, I can multiply with the denominator throughout. When I have a fraction in an expression, I can't multiply throughout with the denominator, because I can't do it throughout and then I change the expression. Then I must multiply with the same numerator and denominator so that I keep it the same. So things like that. When I have a square root in an equation, I get the square root alone and everything else, and I can square both sides to get rid of the square root. But when I have a square root in an expression, I can't just square it, because then I change the expression. I don't change an equation if I do the same thing both sides. So there's different things that you can do and can't do mathematically depending on whether you work with an equation or an expression. So it is worth just knowing the difference between these two. And then you will see when we get to an inequality, an inequality works exactly the same as an equation, but that just has, instead of the equal sign, it has a smaller than or bigger than, or smaller equal to or bigger equal to sign in. And the steps for treating the equation or solving the inequality works quite a lot like solving the equation. There's just a few little tricks. Right, so know the difference, know these definitions, know what they mean, what they are. This is mathematical language, and when I speak of you must get the multiples of that or the factors of that. I don't need to explain what multiples and factors are every time, because these are mathematical language words that are used constantly. So it's best if you know what these means from the beginning.